Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the start of pre-season, which is usually sun-kissed pitches, extreme temperatures.
If I turn this round, do you think your laptop will? Do you think the connection will remain?
I don't know. I'll try and we'll try and talk over it. But that is what we're currently looking at. I don't know if that is visible, but the rain is absolutely pelting it down here. We of course are at the Hive this evening for Norwich City's opening pre-season of the 23-24 campaign here against National League side Barnet. It is absolutely chucking it down. It has been chucking it down for most of the afternoon. I mean, we're close enough to the pitch that we can tell you that that looks okay. You may be able to see some of the Barnet goalkeepers warming up in the distance. But if we were about a row further down, we would. I'd certainly be getting punished for the lack of hood that I have on this coat. So there we go. But we are here. We're expecting a Norwich City team to appear in about a minute's time or so. Welcome, one and all. Welcome back. I hope you're having a wonderful summer. Paddy, lovely conditions. Summer. I know.
Summer.
British summer, this.
Well, I mean, I won't be able to complain that it was too hot to run around in today. That's for sure. But it looks, thankfully, because it is the level of rain you'd start to fear. It looks like a good surface. Seems to be draining quite well.
Well, it's a good job it's summer, isn't it?
I know, exactly. It probably hasn't had a game on it since end of last season. But yeah, I think if you're a player, you probably prefer this tonight, don't you, in terms of the conditions? Although a little bit slippy, I'd imagine if you're David Wagner, that's another debate. If you're David Wagner and his coaching staff, a little bit concerned about potential injuries on a surface like this and a night like this. But on balance, I think if you're running around in it, you'd rather run around in this sort of weather. There you go, you got the team.
I do have the team for you, which is this. Krul in goal. Jack Stacey starts for Norwich City. Tompkinson, Gibson and Mumba at the back four. Bali Mumba at left back, which is interesting. Gibbs, Sorensen, Rowe, Nunez, Hernandez and Barnes. So that looks like a 4-2-3-1 to me. I'll just read that again. Krul in goal. Stacey, Tompkinson, Gibson and Mumba as the back four. Gibson, Sorensen as midfield two to start with. Rowe on the right. Hernandez on the left with Marcelino Nunez behind new signing Ashley Barnes. So we'll get a look of Jack Stacey and Ashley Barnes tonight. Those on the bench and those who will probably play a significant part in this. Archie Mayer, Callum Fisher, of course, the lad who signed from Bromley, not Bromley, that's Denmark, isn't it? Bromley. You can tell it's pre-season, there's a bit of rust. Warner, Hills, McCallum, Manning, Clark, Shollis, Springett, Proheta and Abu Kamara. So probably, Pad, about as we expected in terms of that Norwich City lineup. We get a look at two new faces. Probably weren't expecting to see Jack Stacey tonight.
No, probably not, actually, no. But I guess with Max away with the 21s, Callum Fisher on the bench tonight. He's the other right-back addition this summer. And obviously Bali did a lot of damage on the left-hand side for Plymouth last season. So I think I was led to believe at the start of the summer that David Wagner was keeping a very open mind on which flank Bali Mumba will be deployed this season. So, there's an opportunity there on the left to start with. No Yanulis, McCallum on the bench. But clearly that's tonight at least anyway. He wants to have a look at him. I'm quite intrigued. The three, if here's a three behind Barnes, Rowe, Nunez and Hernandez, you'd think Hernandez in the 10. With pace to burn in wide areas, and also Jolis as well as Poeta on the bench as well. And that, in the light of no Borja Sainz tonight, obviously, but it's very clear, we discussed it on yesterday's podcast, that those wider areas, I think, is where you'll start to see a real David Wagner template emerge. And by all accounts, Jolis has come back really lean, really worked on his fitness over the summer, and looks physically a different player. So we might see a glimpse of that tonight. But we know Sorensen as a central defensive midfield. That's what David said at the fans forum the other night. That's his best position. So and Gibbs alongside him, I like that as well. So but it's ultimately what's it about tonight, and probably Kings Lynn. It's about fitness and minutes into the legs. But it will be nice to see Stacey and Bali Mumba as well, because I think it feels like there's an opportunity for him to really come back full of confidence from what he did at Plymouth, both individually and collectively as part of that team, and really nail down a starting place, because it felt like his trajectory is now probably aligned with where Norwich find themselves. And I'm looking at him tonight in particular for me. And I guess obviously Barnes, we know what he's all about, but first glimpse for these Norwich fans here tonight, sheltering in the bar behind us in a minute. But let's see what he's all about. He certainly talks the game, doesn't he? We had a good chat with him at the forum, and he was a very impressive character to interview. And let's see maybe the start of something in terms of how it's going to knit together at the top end of the pitch.
Yeah, not a huge surprise to see a lot of players who, of course, have been away with internationals not involved. Shane Duffy, of course, not involved either. I think there was a little bit of a fitness concern towards the end of the campaign with Fulham, so whether that plays a role or not, I'm not sure. Manning on the bench, we've been frantically trying to work out who he is. That looks like Adian Manning, who was at Watford. I think he might have been one of the ones who were on trial with Norwich towards the end of last season. So he's a central midfielder by all accounts, 19 years of age. So he is on the bench, which makes sense given the lack of maybe natural central options that they have on there. Hello.
One for you on a personal nature, Connor.
My black lab, he is called Arlo. He is just over 1 year old, and he is pain in my neck. So there you go. You should have beeped or waved or whatever you're doing, but thank you very much. Bali Mumba, let's talk about him a little bit. He had such a good campaign at Plymouth last season. Obviously played in a different role. He was kind of a left wing back. It was a role that really was kind of designed for the system that Steven Schumacher wanted to play. I mean, David Wagner confirmed to us towards the end of last season that he would play a role in pre-season and that he wanted to have a closer look at him. He felt he could play in a back four and they would give him that opportunity. How exciting is it for him to come back, given the type of player that we know he is? I remember one game that sticks out in my mind. It was back behind closed doors, but we came on and made a real difference against Swansea City and set up a goal and really helped Norwich City win that game. Probably a bit too raw and went away as obviously learnt his stripes a little bit at Peterborough, then subsequently at Plymouth. Going to be really interesting to see how he gets on, not just tonight, but throughout pre-season. One that's probably David Wagner's going to be keeping a close eye on.
Well, exactly. I mean, tonight, I think I'm right in saying that he played at Dereham at the start of the last summer, and then in very short order he wasn't going to be part of it, and he moved on and had a wonderful season. You know, League One Young Player of the Season, a title winner with Plymouth, got to Plymouth as in the Football League Trophy, I think, at Wembley as well. So all that experience that he amassed, and you only have to see the reaction from the Plymouth fans. They absolutely loved him. So for me tonight, albeit in this rather more relaxed setting in terms of what it's all about tonight, I'm actually looking to see, contrasted to the player we saw at Alders Park 12 months ago, how far he has progressed, you know, physically, in terms of his confidence, in terms of his impact and his influence on the pitch for Norwich, because, as I said it in my previous remarks, I look at McCallum, I look at Yanulis, and I don't see any of either of those really as nailed on to be Norwich's left back / left wing back. So there's a massive opportunity for him, and you know, he must be wanting to put down a marker and just continue on in the same vein. He will have come back from that loan experience, boy to man almost, because he now knows what it's all about, and he's played, you know, in a successful winning side. He'll have all that confidence and hopefully that momentum, and let's see a little bit of that on show tonight. And for me, I think right now, before a ball's kicked, if I was to stick my neck out of him, McCallum and Yanulis, opening game, Hull, Carrow Road, League, I think Bali Mumba's got the nod for me at the minute. But obviously things can change in pre-season, but it just feels as those three line up, he's probably the one, I feel, if you're David Wagner, you want him to really kick on, and then your mind's made up for you.
Yeah, particularly the way he plays, so aggressive and so attacking, wants to go and join attacks. We know David Wagner likes to push those fullbacks really high, so definitely an opportunity for there if he can grasp it. And of course, there's been plenty of speculation about Dimi Yanulis's future as well, so we'll keep an eye on that one. He, of course, is part of the international contingent, not involved tonight. Just to read you Barnet's team, it's a great night for the Trialist family, as I think a comment referenced. This is their starting 11. They've got Walker in goal, Coker, Colin, Armstrong, Senior, Gorman, Kabanga, Pritchard, not that one, Oluwu, Revan, and Reece Hall-Johnson, who is a name might be familiar to some Norwich City fans. He was part of the FA Youth Cup winning squad at Norwich. He signed about an hour ago, and he signed so recently he's not even got a squad number. It's definitely not Ryan Manning. He hasn't even got a squad number on this graphic that I'm looking at. Their subs, Trialist goalkeeper, Okimo, Stead, Carnu, Granville, Winter, Beard, Barrett, Brunt, and a duo of Trialists, the Trialist twins, to finish us off.
Answer this one, Connor.
Yeah, well, this is the one I was going to bring you in on, because Borja signs, obviously signs, as we said on the pod. on Friday. We weren't expecting him to be involved tonight. Just talk to us about why that may be the case. I suppose as is the case with quite a lot of that international contingent that aren't here tonight.
Yeah, well, I mean, Yunulis and Omar Daly, they're both back in the building, and neither of those are involved. And I think with science, he is training now. He is fully fledged Norwich player, but it's probably a little bit too early. And I think if you're David Wagner, I think Kings Lynn's probably a better first sighter of him, really, with a few more days of training. He's probably still getting to know the names of his teammates. We're probably still at that level, so there's no real need to fast track him straight into tonight. As I say, you look at the lineup, you've got Rowan and Hernandez, you've got on the bench Poeta and Jolis. They're not exactly lacking for wide options tonight, so I'd imagine he's here. We've not actually seen any Norwich players. They're probably sheltering.
Well, if Twitter is to be believed, he was navigating thick fall roundabout this morning. So,
I mean,
give the lad a chance.
Yeah,
He'll still go round.
If he is, then it's not going to bode well for kick-off tonight. But from what I was led to believe yesterday, he would be here in a watching brief. And as I say, Kings Lynn onwards, maybe that might be the first sighter. And we discussed it at length on the podcast yesterday. Feels an exciting signing. Feels like a bit of a statement. And certainly, if you're Hernandez and Rowe tonight, if you're Poeta and you're Jolis and you get on, you know you've got to perform, because this guy has come here to be a star. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Yeah, so much focus on the top end of the pitch for Norwich City, the creativity, how they're going to score the goals. Ashley Barnes obviously up front tonight. Interesting that there's no Sargent, who has been with the club, and they're gone. Yeah,
well, I was just going to say, again with him, if you remember, back end of last season, he had that ankle issue. He didn't go off and play with America in the Gold Cup. And David basically said, I think, prior to the Blackpool game, that they were managing that situation. He was just going to go and get some rest. And then he'd be fully fighting fit as we move through pre-season. So again, I think with him, we'll obviously put it to David after the game tonight when we speak to him, but I think that's more precautionary and just easing him back in, I think.
Yeah, but that top end of the pitch, like we spoke about, so Ashley Barnes playing very much as the number 9. There's been a lot of focus on perhaps who are playing that number 10 role. That's Marcelino Nunez tonight. Obviously not too much that we can read into this being the opening pre-season friendly of the summer, but interesting that Rowe and Hernandez are the options. John Rowe obviously had a lot of injuries last year. Przemysław Poeta, again, someone who maybe gets a little bit lost in the conversation because he was out for so long last year. It feels like two natural wide options to accompany a striker who probably feeds off service in the box tonight.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, as I say, it feels like a David Wagner team, the one that was casting his image at Huddersfield. They were very good in the transition, very dynamic, very direct, and certainly the template of tonight feels in those wider areas he's got that option both on the starting roster and off the bench. But whether that's balls raining into the box, I'm not too sure. Really. I mean, Ashley Barnes, physically he can do that role, but I think he's a little bit underrated in terms of with his back to goal and bringing players in. And I think that's probably more in their mind, because I think if they were going to be that one-dimensional, it would be a little bit too easy. I think they'll want to be a bit more mobile. And of course, you've got Nunez in the mix there, who's a very clever player who can find the pockets of space and thread those balls through. So for me, you're talking about Barnes there, but it's that 4. How does that 4 knit together? Because that moving forward is so important, that they have that little bit of everything, pace of wide areas and directness, but the cleverness of a Nunez type player in there, and then you need that punch at the top end of the pitch to stretch the play as well. So, again, keep saying it, we probably won't learn huge amounts about these players or David Wagner and what he's trying to do with these players tonight, but it'd be nice to see 1 or 2 little signals of, what the rest of this pre-season and then on into the season might look like. But, really, I'd imagine we're still in triple session mode, so I'm sure these players have been working to that Colney earlier in the day, and there'll be a little bit of legginess about it, so let's not probably get overexcited about what we're going to see in terms of with the ball tonight. I think it's very much minutes in lengths, and this is just a continuation of their physical fitness work, really, at this stage.
Should we talk about Daniel Farke? He's been confirmed in the last 40 minutes or so as the new boss of Leeds United, which I think we all knew was coming. October the 21st is the date to put in your diaries. That will be when he brings his Leeds United side to Carrow Road. That Carrow Road return is going to be quite something, I would imagine. It's a big job he's got on his hands there, isn't it? I mean, what do you make of his decision to move there, and also what he faces at the moment, which is a club that is going through an ownership change. Obviously, it's just gone through a head coach change. relegation as well. He's got a lot to turn around there with high expectations.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt he's been brought in to get them promoted at the first attempt. That's, I'm sure, his USP when he went in for those interviews, that the last 2 times in this level, he did the business and did it in style as well. And so at the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, given the scenario you've mapped out there, if it doesn't hit the ground running and come together pretty instantaneously,
he's not really a coach that works like that either.
Exactly. It took him time at Norwich. We know that, and the expectation levels between Norwich then and Leeds now are chalk and cheese. So that would be my only concern if you're him and his backroom team going in there. That what does it look like at Christmas if they're outside the top 6 and things aren't suggesting they're coming together at the speed they need to? Because you see Leicester, you see Southampton, Middlesbrough. There's a lot of clubs in and around the top end of the division, I think, this season. Leeds can't really afford to give too many of a head start to. So on a personal level, it's fascinating to see him back in England and back in the Championship, but not at Norwich. So how that one plays out. October the 21st at Carrow Road, that'll be an interesting dynamic, to put it mildly. And of course, we've had a few comments. Will the band be? I mean, the band's sort of almost put back together with Rima and Domagola and Christopher John, but there's a notable absentee, and there might be a vacancy for a sporting director at Leeds in about 3 months, because they've only got a temporary interim appointment at the minute. I know it didn't quite end amicably, well in terms of Daniel and Stuart's story at Norwich, but who's to say that they're not reunited? And if they were, then I'm not quite sure what would happen to the Norwich Twitter sphere. I think it'd go into terminal decline. So we'll see. But fascinating. You can see why Leeds have gone for him. I can also see from Daniel's point of view, given his job status, why you wouldn't want to bite the hand off and get into Leeds again, because he will know the scale of that club, gets them going then, and gets them back in the Premier League. Unlike Norwich, he probably thinks he's got a fairer fighting chance to really establish them and do something in the Premier League.
More funds as
exactly,
well.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. So it has the potential to really ignite, but there's also at the back of your head, because you've seen Leeds implode routinely over recent years, that it could go the other way. So I guess that unpredictability is what it makes it fascinating. And then you add on the Norwich dimension, then, yeah, I'm sure plenty of Norwich fans will be keeping a very close eye now on Leeds and Daniel Farke.
Yep, just finally, then we're not going to do score predictions because that would be ridiculous. We'll say,
right,
and we wouldn't get it right anyway. But it would be completely ridiculous as some of Barnet's players, or all of Barnet's players, emerge to warm up for this game. But what are you hoping to see from tonight? David Wagner will be looking at it purely as a fitness exercise. Is there one thing, 2 things maybe that you're hoping to see from this Norwich City side, even this prematurely in pre-season?
Yeah, I think just to recap, I think Bali Mumba, I'd like to see signs that he's gone away as a kind of a development prospect, and he's come back as, no, this is a fully fledged first team player now, a starter, in fact. So, glimpses of that would be good tonight if he was commanding on the ball and dominant and getting on the front foot and offering an attacking dimension. And actually, talking a wide player, John Rowe, this is a big pre-season for him, because last season, after the promise of the season before when he made his Premier League debut, and he was one of the few bright spots in another Premier League relegation season, through injury, no fault of his own, it just didn't happen for him last season. So if we get something from him as well, there's a lot of talk about wide areas, and you still feel that they'll probably be looking for another one in that area, I think, in the window. But if John Rowe can put his best foot forward in pre-season, then who knows? It might be, at this stage of the summer, you realistically think him and Springett might be heading out on loan again. But who knows? John Rowe lays down a marker or 2 during pre-season, then justifiably he could be in the mix as a real frontline option when the season starts. So that's, for me, they're the 2 I think tonight. I think Mumba and Rowe, if we see something from them, and it's fair to assume they'll probably be, given the wingers will switch over, we might see them in tandem at various points down that left hand side. So if we get a nice little link up there, who knows? That could put a seed of doubt in David's mind, because I'm sure he'll already at this stage of the season have a kind of preferred idea in his head of what Hull could look like in terms of lineup. But a lot of games, a lot of training to go between now and then, and it's for these players to really try and force his hand. And it's just nice to be back, really. I mean, it's more or less 2 months since Blackpool, and we know how desperate that end of the season was. And it'd be, I think, on a broader point, just to feel like the page has turned, that's behind us, and there's something positive on the pitch that Norwich fans can start to see emerge now in pre-season, a real clear identity of a David Wagner Norwich team, and it all starts here tonight. What about you, Colin?
I'd like to see an Ashley Barnes header. I think just for,
one of the 57.
One of the 57. He did. I don't think he was including pre-season, but there we go. Let's see what we get. But yeah, it's good to be back. Hopefully the rain stops. It's eased a little bit. You'll be pleased to know, and it'd be nice to see all the Norwich fans who are going to be to our right in that stand. This evening, only 3 stands at the moment here at the Hive, so that's interesting as well. Of course, you can follow live updates on the Pink and Plus app. All of the coverage and analysis and reaction to this game will be across our channels as per usual. I'll be doing a brief little verdict, but I don't expect any massive. Not that you'd expect insight anyway, really, but certainly in terms of anything tactical or anything like that.
Mr. Wagner's over there. I've spotted him for the first time. He's in the building.
Yeah, he is here. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching, and enjoy the game if you're here, and we'll see you very, very soon.
Caring for others is the greatest privilege that we could have. If we couldn't do that, then I think we'd be in the wrong profession.
It's a job that when you start, you never want to leave. And you can go home knowing that you've made a difference to someone else at night.
That means a visit by someone. As I say, they're not my carers, they're my friends.
It's just so rewarding to go home and know that just because I've been there for a little while, I've made a difference to their life and made an impact.